My name is Daniel Wallershofer. I'm the scientific director of the laboratory your genetic test was performed in, and I would like to take some time to go through your genetic test with you. So I would like to ask you to take your report, no matter if it's a hard copy or a digital copy, and then we're just going to start from page number 1. I'm going to have a digital copy of a report on my screen, and then we would just go through it step by step. And this should ensure that you understand everything correctly and that you also know how to use the report, because there's no use in knowing a lot about your genetic information if you don't know how to use this information to your benefit. All right. By the way, do take note that this might be a slightly older video by the time you're watching it, and we continue improving our reports. So there might be some differences between what I have on my screen and what you have in your booklet. So don't worry if there are some differences. I will explain the general concept, and I'm sure that you're going to understand what I'm trying to say, even if there are minor differences. And also, there are different versions of this report. So some are specifically tailored for sports studios, some are specifically tailored for use with doctors. So there might also be minor differences, but then again, this video is going to help you understand all of the aspects of the analysis. All right, so the whole thing starts with the cover letter. Here you're just going to find out some information of when the genetic sample has arrived at the laboratory, when we've performed it, and you also find my signature releasing the results for report creation. And on the next page, you just have a table of content, and then we start here. So let me enlarge this a little bit. I would really recommend that you read through this once. It's very easy to understand. I'm sure you're going to find it interesting. But let me just quickly summarize what you find in this section. The human body consists of around 50 trillion individual cells. And every one of those cells, with some minor exceptions, has a cell nucleus. And in the cell nucleus there are the human chromosomes, and these are these X shapes that you see here. And if you take a closer look at a chromosome, you find that it is in fact a very tightly wound thread. And this thread is the DNA double helix. And this is this helix structure that you see. Now, if you look at the helix in more detail, you actually see genetic letters. In reality, these are not really letters, but certain chemical structures that are there, but scientists abbreviate them in genetic letters, the A, T, G, and C. And those are the 4 different letters that our genetic code is made up of. And this is incredibly much information. For example, if I were to read out the genetic code ATGACGG in this speed of just one single cell, then it would take me 100 years to complete it. And this is just one cell, and as we've said, you have 50 trillion individual cells. So it's incredibly much information. All right, now what are genes? Genes are certain regions in this genetic code, and a gene contains an instruction. It's an instruction to your body of how to do something. For example, the lactase gene, the LCT, that's the abbreviation. This gene means that in this genetic code, there is the instruction for your body how to produce an enzyme. An enzyme is kind of a small scissors that can digest something. And this gene has the genetic information of how to build this enzyme and how to digest lactose. Lactose is a milk sugar. There's another gene, the thrombosis gene, factor 5. This just means that this gene here contains the information of how to prevent thrombosis, a blood clot from forming in your arteries when this shouldn't be the case. So there's a gene that has a certain function, and another gene has another function. And most genes mostly only have one function, some have a few, but this is pretty much how the instructions of your human body look like. And there are around 25 to 30,000 different such genes, and there are different versions of each gene. So there's a blue version of an eye color gene and a green version, and so on. And this is the general concept of how the human blueprint of how to build a body is structured. Now, the next question is, what is a genetic variation? if you were to take my factor V gene and that of any other random person, and you put them next to each other, you would find that the code is almost identical. There are only going to be very few situations, very few positions where there might be one letter change. So the genes, virtually all humans have exactly the same factor V gene, but some have one letter in one position and some people have another genetic letter. And these are the genetic variations called SNPs, single nucleotide polymorphisms. So we don't actually need to look at the whole gene because the genetic variations are usually the only part where there is a difference from one person to the next. So if we look at a certain letter here, it might be that if there's an A here, that means the gene works normally. And if there's a G, it's a kind of genetic error, then the gene has lost its function. It forgot the instruction that it should encode. So what we can do is we look at a specific genetic variation, and we know if there's an A here, then you don't have an increased risk of thrombosis, and if there's a G here, then you do, because the gene does not function correctly. And that's the general concept of genetics. Again, there's more information in here. If you're interested, do read through it. It's an interesting read, in my opinion. All right, the weight sensor. As you are likely aware, this program is modular. So you can say, I want to use genetics to find out how to lose weight efficiently, or you can use genetics to find out how to eat healthy. What type of food is healthy for you based on your genetics. Or you can say, I want both of it. And this now is the part of the weight sensor, meaning this is genetic testing with benefit to weight management, weight loss, as well as managing and maintaining your optimal body weight. And this test has two functions. One is for prevention, so when you are not overweight, it will help you to stay slim. And for treatment, so if you are already overweight, which most people that order this test are, they use this test to find out how to treat or how to improve their body weight with this genetic test. And it doesn't really help with early detection, that's why you don't see a check mark here. All right, this here is basically a summary, and I don't want to go into too much detail about this here because we're going to talk about each one of the details later on. So let's just skip this page for now. You can later go back to this page, and once I've explained the whole program to you, you're going to understand what each of these numbers mean. And this here, I will just enlarge it. This is the first scientific part. We are testing 8 different genes, genetic variations, to find out the tendencies for obesity, how the body reacts to certain foods, certain nutrients, and so on. And we called the genes weight gene 1 through to 8 in a simplified way, just to make it simple. But there are also the scientific names, and these are the ones here, so FABP2 and so on. And these RS numbers, you can see it as a kind of catalog number which uniquely identifies this one genetic variation that we're testing. And this here is your laboratory result, and that's unique for you. So other people will have a different result here. And basically what it means, the FABP2 gene, of this particular gene, every person has 2 copies, one from his or her father and one from his or her mother. Now, as I said, we're not interested in the whole gene because it's pretty much the same in every person. We're just interested in one specific gene letter, the genetic letter, because this is the region of interest where people differ. And it just means that on the first gene there's a G in this position, and on the second gene there's also a G in this position. It just means both genes are exactly of the same type, they both have a G. And from scientific studies we know, for example, 2 Gs here means you're fat sensitive. If there would be A and G, it might mean that you respond better to exercise. And if there are 2 A's, it might mean that you're more responsive to carbohydrates. So this really is the genetic information, the genetic result, and this will be unique to you. don't worry too much about not knowing what kind of information is behind these letters. I will show you later what it means. And this is really something for experts to check up your result. You can compare it to a blood test with lots of values that you wouldn't know what each of them means unless an expert interprets them for you. All right, and here we come to the first genetic predisposition. So we've tested your genes, and from these genes scientists can tell a number of things about your body. The first thing is your genetic tendency to obesity, so your predisposition to be overweight. Now, scientists have found out that around 60 to 80% of your body weight is influenced by genetics, so it's caused by genetics. And this is partly right. In some people it's more, in some people it's less. And here is part of the story. So we have tested the genes. We know that some of them predispose you to being overweight and some of them do not. Now, this arrow here will show you where you are situated. So do check your own booklet where your arrow is, because it will likely be different than the one that we have in the report here. So some people have a low genetic tendency for obesity, which means the genes would give you, in case your arrow is in this position, your genes would give you the best chances to have optimal body weight and maintain it. It's only your lifestyle that's the problem. So that's good news, because your genes don't make it difficult for you, and you just need to change your lifestyle to suit your genes to be able to lose and maintain weight. If you're up here, it means kind of the opposite. It means that most of your genes predispose you to be overweight. So it's not really a problem of your lifestyle, although it is part of the problem, definitely. But the genes, your genetic tendencies, things you've inherited, are part of the problem, and a big part of the problem. Now, don't be discouraged if your arrow is here, because it means your genes are making it difficult. However, through this genetic test, we have now found out how they cause this predisposition to obesity. So we found out why you're overweight, because you might be fat sensitive and you tend to eat a lot of fat and low carbohydrates. So if you're in this area, the good news is we now know how this genetic predisposition is happening, and we can counteract it. So we can change your lifestyle to balance out this genetic tendency. And if you're somewhere in the middle, it means it's partly due to your lifestyle and partly due to your genes. All right, then let's go on to the next page. This here is the scientific part. Now, I usually wouldn't encourage people that are not scientists or doctors to go through this. In case you're interested, I'll just quickly talk you through it. This is a scientific table of just one gene, the FABP2 gene, fatty acid binding protein 2 gene. Again, this is a catalog number, and here's some scientific jargon of what this gene does. Now, there are three different options. Again, we're looking at one genetic variation, so one genetic letter in this gene. If there's a G on both genes, you would see this here, GG. If you see an arrow here, that's your result. If you see it here, that will be your result. So GG has no specific effect in this case. So, and 42% of the general population of people around you will have GG in this gene. Now, if your arrow would be here, then you would have an A on every letter on both genes. And that would be the case in 7% of people around you as well. And in that case, you would have increased fat sensitivity. So these people are more sensitive to the amount of fat that they eat. They gain more weight if they eat more fat than others. And also an increased risk for fat deposits around the organs. Now, our program is very strongly scientifically supported. So down here you will find a number of scientific references. Basically, every time a scientist says, I think this gene might have something to do with fat sensitivity, then they do a scientific study. They find a number of participants, the more the better. And then they, for example, give them more fat in their diet, and look what happens. And some people will gain weight and some do not. This is what happened in some of these studies. That was very interesting, because only people with a certain genetic variation gained weight when they ate more fat, while the others maintained their weight. So some people are sensitive to the amount of fat, while the others are not. And this will just be one study, but we need more than that, because there might have been an error in the way it was conducted. So serious scientists usually wait for 3 scientific studies that have been performed by 3 different scientific groups, so that it's not the same person doing the same mistake again, coming to the same results. So it's 3 different people or groups doing the same experiment on 3 different populations, and if they all show the same thing without any contradictions, then scientists say, wow, there is some truth to this, and then you can use it in a medical perspective or in a medical use. So as you see, we have a number of scientific studies. They are by no means all the studies that have been done on this gene. There are usually several thousand studies having been done on these genes. Not everything to do with weight management, but these genes are quite well known to science and have been subject of lots of studies. Now this is here, it would be the next gene. So going to the next page. And you see, if you have a CC here, that's 86% of the population, you have increased sensitivity to fat and also a genetic predisposition to obesity. As I've said before, some genes make you more prone to be obese, and this is one part of the whole story. So there's an odds ratio here. OR stands for odds ratio, and that means it's a fold risk. So if you have the CC genotype, the CC result in this gene, you have an odds ratio of 1.38, meaning you have a 1.38 fold higher likelihood of developing obesity than if you had the GG type. So it's 38% higher, more or less. And you see the different types. CG, 12% of the population, a stronger yo-yo effect, the rebound effect once you've lost weight, increased risk for fat deposits around the organs, increased weight loss through calorie reduction, so eating less and so on. So do read through this in case you're interested. Otherwise, this is very technical. You don't need to understand all of this to be able to use your program correctly. It's really just meant for critical scientists that look through our program, that want to see where we do get our information from and what science we've based it on. So I'm going to go to the end of this here. Now here we see what kind of information we could gather from your genetic test. And the first step, the first thing, looks at what sort of genetic type you are. For example, the first question is, do you gain weight from carbohydrates? There have been studies that some people, when they eat more carbohydrates, gain weight, which is what you would expect, because carbohydrates, sugars, they have a lot of calories. However, other people did not. And the difference was a genetic variation. So we tested this genetic variation in you, and then we can tell if you hardly have gain weight from carbohydrates based on the genetics, or if you gain a lot of weight from carbohydrates. And do take your booklet and check what your personal result is. It could be anywhere along these lines. Then the next question is, do you gain weight from fat? Intuitively you would say yes, fat, because if you're overweight, you've got too much fat. That would mean fat would make you overweight, which is partly true, because scientific studies have shown, to express it in a simplified manner, if you eat a fatty meal, the fat ends up in your intestine. And then the body thinks, wow, great, fat's got a lot of energy and I can build some cell walls out of it and everything, and it starts absorbing the fat. But then, eventually, once enough has been absorbed, a gene kicks in and says, okay, thank you, it was enough. And then the rest of the fat stays in the intestine. And it doesn't matter if this person has eaten a moderate or a high-fat meal, the rest stays in the intestine, is not absorbed, and passes out of the body again. So these people are completely resistant to the amount of fat that is in a diet because it stays in the intestine. However, a genetic variation in this gene can disrupt its function. So people with a certain genetic variation do not have this thank you, it's enough effect. So the body takes as much fat as it can get, and then it doesn't use it all up, and then it stores it away for possibly later. And that's the problem of obesity. So what we did is we tested the number of genes that are responsible for this. And with these genes, we can now tell if you're very sensitive to fat, so if your body will take as much fat from food as you can, or if you're hardly sensitive to fat. Again, your arrow could be anywhere in between here. Now, there's nothing about proteins, and I need to explain why. Really, the important substances are carbohydrates, fat, and protein. That's the substances that we get most of our energy from. So really, you can in theory, get overweight from each of them. And we have seen, as I've showed to you, some people are more sensitive to carbohydrates, others are not. The same goes for fat. So there are differences from one person to the next about their sensitivity to these two macronutrients, is what we call them. Now with protein, science has not found any difference in response. So as far as we know, maybe it is exactly this case, maybe we just don't know yet, but we cannot say one person is going to be more sensitive to protein than another person. So this program generally keeps protein the same across all different diet options and just changes the amount of carbohydrate or fat for you. So protein is a very important part of weight loss, but it's not in here because there's no difference in terms of genetics. All right, the next question, how strong is your yo-yo effect, the rebound effect? So you've lost weight, you start eating more again, and then you are right back where you started within a few weeks or months. Some people have a very strong yo-yo effect, so they rebound very quickly. Others have a very weak rebound effect. It just means that if your arrow is down here, you need to stay disciplined, because otherwise all of the work that you're putting in, all of the energy that you're putting into weight loss is going to be for nothing, because you're back to where you started within a short time. So if you're here, do see this as the urgent need for you to now decide that you're going to stay disciplined, you're going to change your life from now on. You're not just going to do this for a few weeks, but you're really going to change it. If you're here in the weaker area, it means nature is more kind with you. If you've already lost weight, discipline is not so important. You're still, if you are undisciplined all the time, are going to go back to where you started. It's just going to take longer. But especially for the people in this area, you need to make this decision now to change your life forever. All right, the next question is more of your fat deposited around your organs. Now, fat in obese people can be located in different positions, for example, around the hips, which is more common in women, or also around the organs. So it's actually in the inside of the belly, around the organs. And the problem with this fat around the organs is that it is metabolically active, which means it's more unhealthy for you than fat around your hips. So it's just information. You tend to have more of it around your organs, so avoiding being obese is more important for your health than it would be for people here. It's just some general information for you. All right, and then the question, how much muscle mass do you lose when you reduce calories? Now, to explain this, I need to tell you actually a sad story. In the US, there was a prison where prisoners decided to go on hunger strike. And it was a number of prisoners, so some of them were obese, overweight, others were normal weight. And they continued this hunger strike until many of them died. And what was surprising from a scientific point of view was that the overweight people, as well as the ones that had normal weight, all died after around 60 days. So apparently, in terms of survival, when you don't eat anything, it doesn't matter if you're overweight or not. And the reason is the following. When your body wants to use up fat, it takes fat from stores, but it can't actually use fat in this form. It first needs an amino acid, which it gets from protein, which it gets from muscle mass. So in order for the body to use up fat energy, it also needs protein energy, and it breaks down fat tissue as well as muscle tissue. And what happened in these prisoners was that within these 60 days, they used up all of the muscle protein. There might have been some fat tissue left, but they used up all of the muscle protein, and they, in the end, died of starvation because they did not have enough muscle anymore to continue breathing. So what we learn from this is when you want to lose weight, when you want to reduce your fat deposits, you are going to need muscle protein as well. And now the idea is to make sure that this doesn't happen by counteracting. We know that certain genetic variations make this muscle mass loss more severe than other genetic variations. So this is what we tested here. So depending on where your arrow is, if it's like here, it means that if you reduce your calories, if you break down fat deposits, you will also lose a lot of muscle mass, and we need to counteract this. How we do this, I'm going to explain to you later. If your arrow is here, it means your muscle mass is quite stable. You're still going to lose some, you still should do some exercise to keep your muscle mass, but it's a lot less important to do power-oriented sports. Or you might be somewhere in between here. Now, what I find very interesting in genetics is what areas of our life our genes can control. It's not just blue eye color and high stature, but they also control our talents, our interests, our character, and also our behavior. And this here is part of how they control our behavior. First, the question is, how intense is your feeling of hunger? Now, nature has created all creatures, humans as well as animals, in such a way that when nutrients in the bloodstream are used up and go too low down, the body starts kicking in some genes which create a feeling of hunger. Now this leads the animal to go out in search of food. It led the caveman to go out in search of a mammoth, and it leads us to get up from the couch and go to the fridge. So this feeling of hunger is something that our genes initiate, and it does have an important function to make sure that we don't run out of energy. Now, as I said, genes modify this. So genetic variations can have an effect on this process. And actually, this is exactly what happens. We have found that certain genetic variations lead to some people feeling the feeling of hunger a lot more intense than other people. So some people, if they don't eat for 10 hours, suffer from it much more. They're very hungry, while other people are not. And genetic variations are the cause of this difference. So what we're going to find here, you might have observed this yourself. If your arrow is here, it means you have a weak feeling of hunger. Long periods without food are usually not a problem. If your arrow is here, you tend to be more hungry than other people, and longer periods of not eating anything might be more of a problem for you. Now, the same goes for the feeling of being full. Now, when you eat something, it first goes to your stomach. It fills up the stomach there. And then the first nutrients go into the small intestine. And this is when the body realizes, okay, we're getting food. And then it starts to gradually produce, again, genes are doing this, gradually produce the feeling of being full, satiety. And then the nutrients go in, the body becomes more and more full, and eventually you decide, okay, I'm not hungry anymore, actually I'm quite full, and you stop eating. As I said, again, genes are doing this process. So genetic variations that we have found, again, have an influence on this. So some people produce this feeling of satiety, of being full very quickly, and then they stop eating, and others have a very delayed response. Now what happens is when two people, one with a weak feeling of satiety and one with a strong feeling, they eat, the one with the strong feeling is going to realize, enough, and the other one continues eating because he still doesn't feel full yet, and he eats a lot more. So people with the tendency to have an arrow here tend to overeat themselves, so eat more than their body really would want to have eaten, while people here usually tend to stop by themselves and not overeat themselves. So if you are down here in the red area, you really have to be aware of this. You have to be aware that your body takes longer or takes too long to realize that you are not actually hungry anymore, and you can improve this by eating slower. You can eat a small portion, wait a little bit, eat another small portion, or you can drink half a liter of water. That's going to fill up your stomach, improve the nutrient transport to the small intestine, and this is going to help you. So really be aware, if you're in this area, that you tend to overeat yourself, and keep this under control. Then the next question, do you tend to eat a high calorie diet because of your genes? This I find very interesting. If you take 100 people with a certain genetic variation and you put them in front of a buffet, and this buffet has all different types of food, and everyone gets a plate, and they have the job to put everything that they would like to eat on this plate. And you let these 100 people fill up their plates, and then you put them aside. And then you take 100 people with the other genetic variation, and you let them choose their preferred meal. And then if you compare, you count the number of calories on the plates on average in these people and on average in these people, and you will find that the ones with a certain genetic variation have significantly more calories on the plate than the other ones. But really the job for them was choose what you like. So there are genetic variations that influence that you might prefer food that has particularly high calories, so more fat, more sugars, while other people don't have this genetic variation, that they don't tend to eat these high calorie foods. So again, here you should be aware of this. If you're down here in the green area, it means your body does not entice you to eat more calories. Here you are manipulated by your genes to eat more calories, so you should be aware of it. Make sure that the things that you eat are also low calorie, and look at the kind of things that you eat. And then the last question, do you tend to eat extra snacks because of your genes? It's also very interesting. They looked at genetic variations, and they found that some people with a genetic variation tend to eat snacks all day, and the ones without them tend to go mostly without snacks. And if you're down here, it just means you don't have the tendency. If you're up here, you really need to think about the amount of snacks that you eat, because many people think, well, I'm only eating a salad for lunch and nothing much at dinner and a small breakfast, why am I overweight? But it often happens without actually realizing. You're in front of the television and you're drinking a Coke, and then you're in the bus and you're reading a newspaper and you eat a chocolate bar. So these snacks can really add up. So if you're in this area here, it means your body tries to seduce you to eat more snacks. Be aware of it. Be aware that the snacks are not extra snacks, but that you reduce the amount of food that you eat and you just eat more snacks. But be careful, because these are often unaware calories that you're taking in. All right, so now we know the general genetic tendencies that you have. We know the behavioral influences that genes have. If you're interested in if this is all really true, do look through the genetic science part, which I've explained to you before. You will find all the papers there that prove these things that we've claimed. And now the question is, now we know how your body is built, how can we now use this information to your benefit? And this here is the strategy part. Now the first question is, what is the best fat to carbohydrate ratio for you? If you're fat sensitive and carbohydrate unsensitive, it means you should eat less fat and more carbohydrates, which is okay, because there might be a lot of things with carbohydrates that you like, so you can eat more of those, and you just have to eat less of the fatty stuff that you like. If it's the other way around, fat unsensitive and carbohydrate sensitive, you reverse the thing that you eat. So you always eat less of the things that are causing a problem for you based on your genetics, and you eat more of the ones that are not causing problems. And here, you see, if the arrow is here, it means you should eat low fat, because you're fat sensitive, but carbohydrates are no problem. If you're here, it's low carbohydrate, because you're not fat sensitive, or you might be anywhere in between. Now, there is the tendency to misunderstand this. Some people say, oh, I'm fat sensitive and carbohydrate sensitive, that's terrible, I can't eat anything. This is a misinterpretation, because what it really means is it's actually the best result that you can have, because you're allowed to eat both of it, but a balanced amount, just not too much of either. If you're fat sensitive and carbohydrate unsensitive, it means you're virtually not going to be able to eat any carbohydrates, which might be more of a problem, while if you're somewhere in the middle, a balanced type, which would be anywhere in between, then you have more options for your food. So don't be discouraged if the genetic test says you're sensitive to both, because it means you can eat a balance of it. And the balanced types are generally more here in the middle. Here are the low carb types and here are the low fat types. Alright, so the next question, what is the best balance between diet and exercise for you? Diet meaning calorie reduction or exercise. This is actually a very important part of the program. Scientific studies have shown that if two friends go to a gym and they do the same exercises every second day, the difference in weight loss might be up to threefold. So one person might lose 3 times more weight than the other person. And scientists tried to find out why, and they found a number of genes that are responsible for this. So genetic variation causes you to lose weight very quickly, while in others that don't have this genetic variation, weight loss through sports is a lot slower. So we have tested these genes, and now we know how well your body responds to exercise. And the next question is calorie reduction. Some people, when they eat less, lose weight very quickly, it goes down rapidly, while for others, the body tries to resist. So the same as in exercise, some people respond up to 3 times better to the same calorie reduction. And now what we did is, we tested your genes and we checked out how good is exercise for weight loss. And we also checked how good is calorie reduction for weight loss. And it might be exercise was very effective and calorie reduction less effective. So we would structure the program in such a way that you do more exercise, because it's a very easy and fast way for you to lose weight, and reduce a little bit of calories. It might be the other way around, so you have a very light exercise program and a more intense calorie reduction. So really we try to find out what works for you, we do more of that, and we try to find out what doesn't work for you and we do less of that. It's a lot better than saying, okay, I want to lose weight, I need to do exercise, and then all you focus on is exercising, and exercising might be the worst strategy your body gives you to lose weight. So that's the concept here. Then the next question, what type of exercise is better suited for your genes to maintain muscle mass? As I've explained, some people lose more muscle mass through calorie reduction, while others lose less. And here is where we counteract this. Power sports, so anything that requires strength, is going to build up more muscles. So this is what we need to do more if you lose more muscle mass due to your genetics. So if your arrow is here, it means you need to do more power-oriented sports, weightlifting, circuit training, anything that requires you to use full strength. And if your arrow is here, you should do more endurance sports, so treadmill and things, anything that just keeps you going continuously. So you should really balance the kind of sports that you do depending on where this arrow is to maintain your muscle mass. You don't only want to lose weight, so the number on the scale goes down, but you also want to maintain an athletic body, so that's important. And then the last question here is, how many meals should you eat per day to minimize your hunger? Now, many nutritionists are of the opinion for you to be able to break down fat deposits, you should have a certain amount of hours without food, so the insulin levels allow you to lose weight more effectively. So some of them will recommend 3 daily meals, meaning 1 for breakfast and no food, 1 for lunch, no food, 1 for dinner. In other cases, as I've said, some people are very prone to feel hungry. And in these cases, we recommend 5 daily meals. which doesn't mean you can eat more extra meals, but you just eat the same amount of food, but you split it up into 5 smaller meals to make sure that the spaces between meals are not so long, because your higher level of hunger is going to make it more difficult for you to last throughout the day with just 3 meals. And we know from compliance meaning following the program and not stopping with it, that it's a lot better if people with a strong feeling of hunger split it up into more smaller meals. And depending on your genes, you might also be in the middle, like here, where we would recommend 4 meals. Now, please only see this as a recommendation. If you say, I don't have time to eat 5 times per day, don't worry about me, I can cope with the hunger, then you can go for 3 meals. This is completely up to you. Just make sure that you're not eating more than you should be eating during the weight loss phase. So take this as a recommendation, but it's not really necessary if you prefer a different number of meal setting. Okay, then here is some general information of how genes modify our body weight. It's worth a read. I would really go through it. I think you will find it interesting. And here you see the same scale bars that we've just gone through, but in more detail. So here you're just going to find the same things that I've said to you. Fat sensitive, carbohydrate sensitive. We look at both of them. Again, protein is the same for all of them, so this is actually what you will find written here. And then the strategy of carbohydrate versus fat and so on. So this is just more details. I'm going to skip over these steps. You can read through them, but I've already said everything to each of these sections. One thing you're going to see here, I'm going to just zoom in a bit, you get a recommended percentage. And this is just for your information. For your genes to lose weight most effectively, from scientific studies we know that 48 to 50% of your calories should be from carbohydrates, 30 to 32% from fat, and 19 to 21% from protein. These numbers are going to be different for different people. And by the way, there are around 6,500 different genetic types for this program, so there are probably going to be strong differences from one person to the next. And this also shows you how unique your body is and how unique your weight loss program should also be based on your genetic tendencies. Now, these numbers are a target. These are the numbers that our software and everything calculates with. This is just for your information. It's very difficult to use a calculator and try to find out how much can I eat of something. We've done all of that for you. This is just some information of what the target values are that we've gotten from scientific studies. All right, as I said, some more information, so let's just skip over them. Do read through them there. You will just hear some repetition of what I've been saying. Okay, and here, this is the page of setting goals. Now, setting goals is one of the most important things in weight loss. First, it starts off with a number of what your body weight was when you ordered the test. Now, it's kilograms here. In some countries, it will be pounds. Bear with me, just check your own report and you will see a number. Now, if this number is no longer the weight that you have, you might have gained a little weight or lost a little weight since then. It doesn't matter. It's just an approximation, so don't worry if it's not really accurate anymore. Here you see the calculated ideal weight for your height. So the ideal body weight is determined by sex, body height. So it would be 64 kilograms for this person. It will be a different number for you. Now, you also had the option, when you ordered the test, to define your target body weight, the weight you wanted to reach. And this is down here. Now, you might have given a number. In this case, you will see this number here. Otherwise, we just take your target body weight as being your ideal body weight. Now, if your target body weight is lower than the ideal body weight, I need to tell you a warning. We don't recommend this. In this case, I would recommend just to go to the optimal body weight, because being underweight can be just as unhealthy for your body as being overweight. So be aware, it's ultimately your decision and your responsibility. So the aim now in the first phase of the program is to go from your current weight to your target weight, and this would be in this case 16 kilograms. It might be a different number for you. Now, from experience with these tests, we have found that around 20% of people ordering these tests want to maintain weight, and around 5% want to gain weight. And this test really helps with all of these aspects. If you want to maintain weight, it's the same concept. You just skip the phase where you lose weight and you go to the phase where you maintain your body weight. If you want to gain weight, this test is also useful, because with this genetic test you can find out I'm carbohydrate sensitive. So carbohydrates are going to be your best chance of gaining weight. For people that want to do this, the paper version of the program would end here. We have a menu portal, www.DNAnutriplus.com, where you can log in with the genetic results, and then you can create your menu. And there's a tab where you can click. One is for losing weight, one is for maintaining weight, and one is for gaining weight. You just click on gain weight, and then the program creates a certain food menu for you. And you can then modify it and create your own menu plan, and it will use your genetic information to give you the best chance to gain weight. So if you are of those 5% that want to gain weight, do go to the DNAnutriplus.com website and use it from then on. The rest of the program is really to lose and maintain weight. All right, now about the different phases. This program is looking into your genes. So this program finds out information that you have been born with, and this information is going to remain the same until the end of your life. So if you're carbohydrate sensitive, this was determined by the time the egg cell fused with the sperm and your genes were determined. So this information will remain the same for the rest of your life, which also means that this program is not meant to change your body weight for the next 2 months and then to be discarded, because this information is something that will remain valid. It also means that the aim is first to reduce weight in case you are overweight and you want to lose weight. So that's the first stage. This is called the weight loss phase. And by beginning the program, you're going to drop in weight continuously, and depending on how much weight you want to lose, you're going to be in this phase longer or not as long. And you just continue this phase until you have reached the body weight that you were looking for, that you were hoping to have. And then the next step is the adaptation phase, which is this here. Now, I spoke about the rebound effect. This is something that can happen if you go back to too many calories too quickly. So the body says, oof, I've been starving for these last months or weeks, and finally there are calories, let's save them in case food shortages are going to come again. So what we're doing is we take it slow. So we slowly increase the calories and then slowly increase them again for 2 weeks, and then you've reached the stable phase. And by the stable phase, you will have learned what type of food is making you overweight, what type of food is no problem, and how much of each type of food you can eat without a problem. And the stability phase should then help you to maintain your body weight for the rest of your life. And as I've said, these tendencies will remain the same. There's no need to do the genetic test again, you're just going to get the same results. And if you ever forget about it and you find the booklet on the attic 10 years later, you just brush off the dust and you can start again from page 1. It will still be personalized to you, still your genetic tendencies, and it will work just as well. So keep that in mind. You should really now decide to use this information to change your lifestyle permanently to suit your genes, because then it's easy for you to maintain weight. If you just decide, I'll just bite through it for 1 month and then you stop again, then it's limited results. So I would really recommend you to now decide that this is going to change your future nutrition and future lifestyle permanently. Sorry, one other thing, if you already have your optimal weight, then you just go to phase number 3 straight away. So you don't begin with a weight loss or adaptation phase. I'm going to show you how to do that later. Okay, this page here tells you the ideal calorie distribution. Now, as I've said, for some people exercise is very effective, so we do more of it, and eating less is less effective, so we do less of it. For other people it's the other way around. So really finding out what is most effective will allow us to dose each of them. How much do you do of each? And this here is where you find this information. So this person should burn 184 kilocalories per day through sports and reduce by 666 kilocalories per day by eating less. Because weight loss is either burning more than you have through sport or eating less than you need to maintain your weight through eating less. And we can do both and do more of one or the other. So you're going to have different numbers here. And this is really something that we determined with our algorithms based on genetics. And we will then be able to find a program to ensure that you do the right amount of exercise and eat the right amount of calories. Again, some information about how important exercise is. By the way, it will never be that you don't have to do any sports and just eat less or eat normal and do a lot of sports. Every program will have some sport or some exercise included and some calorie reduction. It's only how much of it is that is different. And even if your arrow is very far in the calorie reduction area, it doesn't mean you don't need to do sports. Sports is important to activate your metabolism. Without even a light exercise program, it's going to be more difficult for you to lose weight. So that's an important part for you to consider. All right. Now, in terms of nutrition, how can you make sure that you get these 54% of calories from carbohydrates and 30% from fat? That might be quite tricky, and we have a number of different ways of how you can make sure that you're eating the right things. The probably easiest thing are these menu suggestions. So you're going to find them in your report. And let's look at one in more detail. Here you see you can either use it for losing weight, to maintain weight, or the adaptation week. So once you've lost weight, you can eat a little more for 2 weeks, and then go to weight maintenance phase. Now, here you have a number of them. So you would eat muffins with berries, a banana, drink a coffee and water as breakfast. And it would be a smaller amount for you while losing weight and a larger amount when maintaining weight. Now these numbers are personalized to you. So they are different with other people because we know from your genes how sensitive you are to fat, carbohydrates and so on. And if you follow this daily menu, then you're going to have exactly the right balance of calories. It's going to be very exact. You're going to not eat too many calories. You have the right reduction of calories, and this is the perfect nutrition for your genetic type to lose weight or to maintain weight. And this is just one menu. You have several other menus, some for seafood, some for fish and so on. So this is probably a very easy way of planning your nutrition. The problem is that you are less flexible because you really have to follow one of these, and you can't mix and match things. So if you're interested in an easy program, this is the way to go. If you want it more flexible, then you can use the DNAnutriControl portal. And this is something that I've explained before for the ones that want to gain weight. This portal allows you to log in with your genetic results, and it will then generate a random menu, kind of like the one that you see here, a random menu with random amounts. And then you can say, it says tuna, I don't like tuna. And you can just throw it away. You grab it and throw it outside. It's all web-based. And then the program realizes, oh, you're just throwing away some calories. So it shares them out among all the other food of this day, and all of the other amounts become more. And the amounts are balanced in such a way that you eat the right amount of calories, fat, carbohydrates, and protein. Now, then you can also say, I've got fish fingers in my fridge and they're going to expire soon, I need to eat them. And fish fingers might be very bad for your genes based on your genetic sensitivities. Now what you can do then is grab the fish fingers, put them in your lunch menu, and the program realizes you're meddling with it. You're doing something that's not optimal for your genes. So it changes all of the other amounts of the other things that you're eating this day to counteract this meddling with the right balance. So you are putting too much fat in, it reduces the amount of everything else that has a lot of fat and increases the other ones that have a lot of carbohydrates. And thereby the menu will balance everything you're meddling with out. And this way you can really eat things that you want to, and you just need to follow the amounts of the other things to follow this through. Then you might say, having just ingredients like chicken, tomatoes and bread is too boring for me, I want to cook. Then you have an option of a large number of recipes, and these recipes will be adapted to your genes. So you're going to open chicken with peppers, and you have the recipe of how to cook it, the ingredients that you need, and the ingredients are going to be automatically adapted to your genes. So if you want to put it into lunch, the ingredients will automatically be adjusted so you eat the right amount of fat, carbohydrates, calories and so on. So you have full flexibility of planning your diet. You have the choice of more than 1,000 different types of food, and this will really help you with full flexibility plan your diet. So this is another way. The first one would be use the pre-planned menu plans. This is to have full flexibility to recalculate everything. Now, if you want to register, this is how you do it. So you first visit the website, you create a new account, you enter the details, and the ones that you need are here. And we have the percentage of carbohydrates, fat, protein, how much you should burn through exercise and so on. And these numbers are the ones that we got from your genes, and they will then be used to help you plan your nutrition. This portal will help you to lose weight. You just click on the tab and say I want to lose weight, so it reduces the calories. And then you can say adaptation week 1, it's slightly more, adaptation week 2, slightly more, and then you say maintain weight, and then it's again more to eat. So it will help you throughout your whole program of adapting your diet. It also has a shopping list, so it helps you order the things that you have on your daily menu plan and so on. Okay, going to the exercise portion, we know that you should on average burn 184 kilocalories. It's a different number for you, but here in this example it's 184 per day. This doesn't mean this person has to do exercise every single day, because some people just don't have time for it. And that is why we have this table here. This table might look a little different for you if you have a different version of the program, but it works the same for everyone. First you decide, I want to do sports or exercise 4 times a week, for example. If that is the case, you go for this training sessions per week 4, and this is the column that you're interested in. And then you say, okay, what do I want to do? For one, I like hockey. Hockey, we know, burns 563 kilocalories per hour, and if I were to do it 4 times per week, I would do 34 minutes of hockey. So I would take a sheet of paper and say half an hour of hockey on Monday. And then you can say, oh, I need to do 3 more sessions. What else could I do? I like mountain biking, so that's 512 kilocalories per hour, that's 37, so 40 minutes of mountain biking. I would write that. Another 2 sessions. So basically you choose from this huge list of different types of sports, choose what you want to do, and create your plan of doing 4 exercises per week. And this might be, for some of you, a quite intense sports program, only because your genes really make it very easy for you to lose weight with sports. So it's going to be tough for the time when you're going to lose weight. However, it's going to be very effective, and it's going to motivate you with the results. If you say I want to do 7 times a week, it's less time. If you say I want to do it 2 times a week, it's a lot more time, obviously. Alright, so here you can use this table to create your own sports program. Alternatively, if you have some, in sports studios, if you can track how many calories you've burned today, you can do your own calculations. There are also apps which calculate the the calorie usage when you go jogging and so on. So find out which way you want to track your exercise and make sure that you are on average in the range of 184 kilocalories here and whatever number is in your table here. Okay, so this is the paper version of how to plan your sports. Now, in terms of diet, the type of food that you eat, this information that I'm showing you here is again background information. You're not going to need this, it's just in case you're interested. Here you're going to find the amount of kilocalories that your body requires to maintain its weight. It's kind of like saving money in a pot. When you put $1 in and take $1 out, it will remain the same. But if you put more in than you take out, you're going to get more money and become obese in case you eat more, you get more calories than you burn. So what we do is we first calculated or found out how many calories you need to maintain your body weight. That's 1,800 in this case, different number for you. Then we reduce the amount that we've decided based on genetics, 666 here, and here we are left with 1,100 kilocalories. So if this person only eats 1,172, they're going to lose weight with the intensity that we decided is most effective from the genes. Now we know how many calories this person is allowed to eat. Then we know, and this is down here, how many of the calories should be from carbohydrates, 48 to 50%, from fat, 30 to 32%, and so on. This can be calculated that this person is allowed to eat 136 to 152 grams of carbohydrates per day. Again, if you want to do the calculations yourself, you can do that. Most products have the amount of grams of carbohydrates on the packaging. But again, you don't need to do this. The program does this all by itself. And now I need to introduce the concept of a food item. A food item is a type of food that you want to eat. For example, if you want to eat breakfast and you want a glass of orange juice, some bread and a fried egg, these would be 3 food items. Now, bread has a lot of carbohydrates and a fried egg more fat. So the question is, how much of each can I eat? So you can choose what you want to eat, but your genes tell you not so much of that, but you can eat a lot of this. So food items allow you to choose a different number of things you want to eat, and the genes are going to tell you how much you're going to eat of each. This is the concept of food item. And background information, one food item is 10 grams of carbohydrates, 88 kilocalories, and so on. Okay, now, if you go to this page, again, you're likely going to have different numbers here. During the weight loss phase, you are allowed to eat, in this case, 13 food items. It might be 15, it might be 20, it's different numbers for different people. And in this case, this person can eat 13 food items. During the adaptation phase, they can eat a little more, and during the stability phase, they can eat 20. And now I need to jump forward to the list, to the food item list at the back of the report to show you how this works. All right, here we see the food table. By the way, as I said, there's a program. The program can be for weight loss only, for healthy nutrition only, or for both. So some of you are going to have question marks here or here, depending on which part was ordered. In this case, both aspects were ordered. That's why I see the whole aspect of this person. Okay, and here, let me zoom in a bit. This is the thing we're interested in at the moment. Overweight risk for food items. So this basically tells you the tendency to make you overweight of a type of food. And it is different for something with a lot of carbs and a lot of fat, depending on your genes. So what this tells us, this bar here, when it's green, small and green, it means this food is not a problem for you and your genes. Eat as much as you want from it, almost. So you can eat a lot of it. If it's large and red, like here, it means this type of food is a big problem for your genes, this is going to make you overweight much more than other food in the green area. And this is really the concept of food items. Let's say this person wants to eat a waffle for breakfast and invests one food item. The person decides waffles, and the genes say what food item is 15 grams. Again, you might have ounces in your program if you use a different system. So for waffles, it's 15 grams. Not very much, due to this person being sensitive to carbohydrates and waffles being rich in carbohydrates. Now, apple strudel, which is a kind of apple pie type, is a lot less of a problem because one item is 60 grams. So what this means is small and green bars are bigger portions for you, and large and red bars mean it's a very small portion for you. And if you had the choice, do I want to eat apple strudel or do I want to eat waffles, you're going to see, oh, I'm going to eat a lot more from apple strudel, so I will prefer this, which is in the green area, as opposed to the red thing. I can still eat the red thing, but it's not going to satisfy me much because it's a very small piece of waffle. Now, if you look at different sections, you're going to see, for example, here in the fruit area, the food items are a lot bigger. So apricots, 230 grams. That's already a very nice handful. That's just one food item out of 15 that you can eat. Berries in general, 350 grams. Raspberry, almost half a kilogram. So really some food items are very large in amount, and others are going to be very small, depending on how good or bad this type of food is for you. So let's go back to the stage where we were in the report. All right, now let's look how a typical breakfast could look like. That's on the next page. So if you go here, you can see a typical breakfast that a person has decided to create for him or herself. Orange juice, one food item, that would be 260 milliliters for this person. A fresh apple, 230 grams. It's 1.5 apples probably. Then whole grain bread. Now this person is carbohydrate sensitive, so bread is quite a small amount. It would be 56 grams. So this person decided to invest 2 food items into bread. So it's basically 56 grams times 2, that's 112 grams. And then cottage cheese, 1 food item. So this would be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 food items invested in breakfast. And then that's 5 of maybe 15 that this person could eat. So this is the concept. You can go through the list, choose the things that you like, and then find out how much you can eat of each, and then create your own program, your own daily menus. You have full flexibility. You only need to eat things that you like to eat, and it's not too complicated. Now the question is, how is this possible? How can we do a genetic test and then tell you this food makes you overweight and this does not? And how does it work that if you can choose whatever you want to eat by just following the amounts, small amounts or larger amounts, that in the end you reach the right balance? And let me just quickly explain the concept behind it. Let's say that chicken is a bad balance for you. That would mean it has too much fat for your genes. Then we would just take chicken and reduce it in amount so much that it becomes such a small and insignificant portion that it doesn't matter for you to eat chicken. If fish, on the other hand, is exactly the right balance, then we would increase this portion so much that it dominates your daily menu. So this portion would be very big. And then if you take it together, a few of the small portions of the wrong food and the big portions of the right food, in the end you get the right balance, the right amount of calories and so on. So there's no need to count calories or anything. You just choose your food items, follow them, don't eat more than that, and then in the end you're all set to follow the right balance. Now here you can just see a few dieting rules. Do read through them. There are a few good recommendations for you, and it's worth to go through them. Some tricks which make it easier for you to follow your diet. Now, this page here will show you, or you will come to this page once you have reached your optimal weight. So, in case you're overweight, do start the program now, and then when you're done, you come to this page. And let me explain what happens now. Now, first of all, congratulations, you've done what you wanted to achieve. The hard part is over. So now we can reduce the intensiveness of your exercise plan. That's the first thing. And many people are happy because some people had a very intense sports program, and now everything is going to be a lot easier. So the first thing is you again plan your exercise, however, with a lot fewer calories to burn. So for example, in this case, this person should burn 61 calories per day on average. Again, you choose how often you want to do exercise. You should really do exercise regularly. But if you say 2 times a week, you earn half an hour of most types of sports, 20 minutes of most types of sports are completely sufficient. So again, take a sheet of paper and decide I want to do 2 times per week, and I want to do handball for 20 minutes and cross-country skiing or rock climbing. So again, you create your own exercise program. By the way, you can also track your exercise on the DNAnutriControl program, so on the web portal. So you can also log in there and use your information and log in there. Okay, so you have now lost weight because you only ate the certain amount of items, and then you're now in the adaptation phase. If you now get too many calories, that means your body said, oh great, calories, let's save them in case this famine goes on, and in that case you would gain weight very quickly again. So to go around this, especially people with the strong yo-yo effect due to genetics, you slowly increase it. So in this case it was 13 food items, now it's 15. So you just choose 2 other food items from the list, you add it to your current meal, and you can eat more. And then a week later, another 2 extra. So your meals start to become more. And in the end, after 2 weeks, you go to the stability phase, you stick with the same training program, and then you can eat 20 food items. Now, let me explain one more thing that some people do that use the program. Now, we have a number of different ways of planning your diet. One is the very simple way, just follow the daily menu plans, low flexibility. Or you log on to the DNAnutriControl program, big flexibility, quite easy to use. Or you use the food item system in case you don't have a computer. So you choose your food items and then you weigh out how much you can eat, and then you know how much you can eat. And some people say that's all too complicated. And they have very good successes by doing the following. They just look at the size of this green bar. They check out that there are more than 1,000 different types of food, and they check out which types of food are in the green area. And with 1,000 different types, everyone is going to find a number of things that they like to eat that are no problem for them. And then they say, okay, I'm going to eat more of the green stuff and I'm going to avoid the red stuff. Or green things all week except for Sunday, when I can also eat red things. So this is probably the easiest way of using this, and using your genetic information. You find out this type of food is good for you, you can eat lots of it, and this is bad, you should make it an exception. And this is one way in which you can also use the program. Okay, back up here in the report. Now this here is the science of genetics and obesity. So that's my field, that's what I'm interested in. It might be too technical for you or too confusing for you. Don't worry about it in case you're not interested. This is really just trying to show what we are doing is based on more than 100 different genetic publications, and a doctor or a scientist can check out if what we are saying is really true, or expose any misinterpretation that we might be making. All right, and here you see a general summary. So the important statements such as people react differently to the fat content in the diet. So some people are sensitive, others are not. And adjustment of fat content in diet may have a positive impact. And then you can see one study used 720 subjects. This is the publication, and they showed that only certain people gained fat and gained weight and so on. And down here are 16 scientific publications that the 16 best, I have to say, there are hundreds, but the 16 best that show what we're talking about. So in case you're interested, this is what we claim, and this is the science we're basing it on. And there are always replication studies. And then the next is carbohydrates. The next one is how you respond to physical activity and so on. And always a huge number of publications that show that this effect that we're talking about is in fact real. And down here you see another list of lots of publications that we've used to create the program, also scientific guidelines and nutrition guidelines and everything. So all of this technical stuff is for experts that are interested, that want to check up of what we're claiming. Then you're going to find the daily nutrition plan, something that looks similar to this. This is something you can photocopy in case you want to use the food item system. So you make a photocopy and you say, or if it's digital, print out a few pages, and you can say, for breakfast I want orange juice, I want bread, and you write how much you can eat. And then you can create as many of these plans as you want, and you just follow them. And another very useful thing, in case you don't want to use the portal, is this page here. It will automatically show you that you had 80 kilograms at the time of ordering the test. So this is where you start, and this is where you want to go. That's your target weight. That's already automatically entered for you. So what you do is you decide yourself how often you want to measure, once a week or every 2 days, and then you just put a cross here where you are. And this will make it very beautiful for you to track how you lose weight and when you've reached your goal. This is going to motivate you. It's going to keep your sights on the goal, and it's very important. And this down here you can use to track your exercise programs on Monday, squash on Wednesday, jogging for 20 minutes and so on. And again, if you go to DNAnutriplus.com, you can do all of this tracking and all of this planning automatically on the website. So through your genetic test, we know how sensitive you are to carbohydrates or to fat. And let's look at fat for a second. As I've said, the concept is like this. Some people have a genetic variation that or have a gene that says when you eat something fatty, it absorbs fat, and at some point the gene kicks in and says, thank you, that's enough. And the fat stays in the intestine and then leaves the body. It's not absorbed. And in other people, this genetic variation disables this effect, and whatever amount of fat is in the intestine, as much as possible is absorbed. And those people are sensitive to fat. Now, there is the option to, for one thing, of course, follow the nutrition plan, but there is the option of a medical product with two different components. Medical product means it's kind of like a nutritional supplement, but it requires scientific studies to prove that it works. And this medical product is consisting of two different of these substances. And this is what it looks like. It's personally created based on your genetics, and it looks like this. It's a blister. In here it will say your name and instructions and so on. And you have lots of different compartments, and each compartment has a number of pills that you can take together with a meal. And depending on your genetics, it's a different mix. So one of the components, let's say you're fat sensitive, which means your body would absorb all of the fat that is available. Then one of the components is kind of like a sponge. You eat it with food, it increases in size, and then it grabs onto fat and doesn't let go anymore. So your body cannot absorb it. So this is a very useful thing in cases where your body would absorb as much fat as possible, and it's completely useless in cases where your body says thank you, no more, and the fat would stay in your intestine anyway. So there's no need in taking this specific substance if your body is not sensitive to fat. The same goes for carbohydrates. Usually carbohydrates are long chains of pearls, you could imagine, and they need to be cut into smaller pieces to be absorbed. And these cuts are done by an enzyme or by a number of enzymes. And these enzymes are like these little scissors that cut the long carbohydrates so that you can absorb them and get the calories from them. Now, the second component is an enzyme inhibitor. So it's something that grabs onto the scissors and doesn't let go anymore. So the scissors are all disabled, and the enzymes, and it doesn't let you absorb the carbohydrates anymore. So what happens is the fat blocking component can reduce up to 23% of fats that you eat. So you eat the same amount, but your body gets 23% less of fat to absorb. And for the carbohydrates, it's up to 2/3, so 66% less carbohydrates. Now, obviously, if you follow the program, you're all set. However, if you want to improve on the program and take this as an addition, we found out your genetic tendencies and what kind of mix is best for you. Hardly carbohydrate sensitive, very fat sensitive. You get more of the fat absorbing component, less of the enzyme blocking component, and otherwise the other way around. So it's a personalized supplement based on your genetics, and it can also be ordered through the website www.DNAnutriControl.com. As I said, it is made for you upon having ordered, and we need your recipe code. And the recipe code you will find in the report. It's down here. So you will need to enter this code. In here we find out we have encoded your genetic type, and this will allow us to create this based on your genes. So you get your optimal supplement. And by entering this and purchasing it on the website, you're then shipped. You receive this, it's shipped to you, and then you would take one for lunch. So the components with half a liter of water before lunch, and one for dinner. Don't take one for breakfast. And recommendations are either to take it during the weight loss phase to lose weight even faster, but also if you have problems with maintaining your weight, every time it goes up a bit, you can take another few of them. Or you can take them long term when you would just do it for dinner and not for lunch and so on. So it's up to you, and it was found to be very effective, and it's just another way of improving the weight loss, but looking at your genetic predispositions to find the right combinations of the right components. So as this program is structured in such a way that you can use genetics to improve weight loss, or use genetics to eat healthy, or do both, there are different sections in the report depending on what you've ordered. So this here is a nutrition sensor part. So this is the eating healthy part, to make sure your body gets the right nutrients. And this is useful for prevention, so to prevent certain metabolic problems to develop, and for treatment. So if you have certain metabolic problems, or you might even be a diabetic or something, if you mentioned that in the order form, the nutrition will be adapted to make sure you get the right nutrients that are necessary for your affliction. So it's meant to help you stay healthy and to improve your health if you already have some metabolic problems or disease problems. Now this page here is going to explain a little bit about nutrigenetics, how genes are going to influence one person differently than others. Because the general assumption that eating healthy is the same for everybody, you should eat lots of fruit and low fat and low sugar, this is just too simple, unfortunately. Because for some people, for example, milk products are a very healthy source of calcium. So for them it's good to eat milk products because they get a lot of calcium. Other people might be genetically lactose intolerant, so they can't drink milk or eat milk products. So for them this is not true, because if they eat milk products they're going to have very, very bad digestive problems. So this is just one example, one gene, and here we're testing more than 50 genes, more than 20 different metabolic problems that arise through this, and each one of them has different nutritional needs that might vary from one person to the next. And this is the concept of nutrigenetics. We test your genes, find out what your personal needs are, what you should avoid, and then we make a list of types of food where we tell you this is good for you to eat and this is bad for you to eat. And by just following, eating more of the good stuff, eating less of the bad stuff, you will do the best you can to supply your body with exactly the nutrients that it needs, and you avoid substances that it really can't work with. Now, detoxification is an interesting concept. Basically, there are a number of different toxins, toxic chemicals and stuff in our environment that can reach our body, that can get into our body. And nature knows about this. So we have a number of systems, a number of genes that can recognize these toxins, neutralize them and remove them from the body. And as you can guess, it's genes that are doing this, that are regulating this. And some people have variations in some of these genes, which means that they cannot neutralize some of the toxins, while other people can. So there are big differences in how people respond to certain toxic chemicals and stuff. All right, let's look at your results. So again, on this page, you will find some general information to read through it. And here is phase 1 detoxification. And this is all about ash, soot, smoke and burnt things. So as you know, smoking increases your risk of lung cancer. That is because some of these smoke contents are carcinogenic. They're cancer causing. And they reach our body, and then a certain enzyme system, genes, indirectly genes recognize them, these toxins, these carcinogens, they neutralize them and remove them. So we have a protection from this cancer-causing substance that reaches our body. So these two genes here are responsible for this detoxification. So I smoke a cigarette, the toxin gets into my body, these two genes recognize the toxin and neutralizes it and prevents it from giving me cancer. In this case, both of the genes have a high odds ratio, meaning that they are defective and they increase the risk. So we have two genes that give me a risk. This one 2.4-fold and 3.4-fold. So we have around 5 to 6-fold higher risk of bad health effects from these toxins that are present in smoke, in ash, in burnt food and so on. So barbecued food also is much more of a problem for a person with this result because you see here the phase 1 detoxification is very ineffective. And it might also be very effective, so in this case it's not so much of a problem. It still doesn't mean you should smoke. It's still dangerous, still likely to significantly shorten your lifespan, but for this person it's 5 to 6 times worse, more problematic than for many other people. So in case you are a smoker, and I hope you're not, in case you're a smoker and you're here in this area, then you really should reconsider your habits, because it's 5 times more dangerous, more problematic for you than for many other people. So it's much more dangerous for your health than it might be for many others. This also explains why sometimes some people smoke for 5 years and develop lung cancer, and others smoke until until they're 80 years old and never develop lung cancer, just because their bodies respond differently to these cancer-causing substances. All right, so do check your own results. If you're here, it means barbecued food is generally, it's not very healthy, but it's not so much of a problem if you have some charred or blackened parts of the meat. You shouldn't eat burnt food anyhow. However, if you're here, it's a lot less healthy for you, and you should really try to cook food in such a way that it's not getting charred or black. So this is the first step. This just tells you barbecue concept, yes or no. The second phase, phase 2 detoxifications, is a lot more interesting. I'm sure you're aware of this trend of organic food, meaning that the food was grown without any chemicals, without pesticides, herbicides and so on. Now some people say this is very healthy because all of these chemicals are unhealthy for you. Other people say they don't matter, they've been tested, they are not dangerous. And in a way, both of them are right, because phase 2 detoxification and let me zoom in here. These 3 genes are responsible for phase 2 detoxification. And this means if I eat some vegetables that have a lot of herbicides in them, then the vegetables are going to contain these substances. They're going to reach my body. And then there are these 3 genes which produce enzymes which recognize it, neutralize it, and remove it. So it's not a problem. Same goes for industrial solvents and things like that. For other people, however, they might not have some of these genes active. And in this case, the herbicide reaches the body, it's not recognized, it's not removed, and it can do its damage. So for some people, absolutely it is a problem because they cannot neutralize the toxins that reach the body. For other people, it's less of a problem. It's probably still not healthy, but it's definitely not such a big health risk and health issue than for other people. Now, let me just quickly talk you through the results here. Here we see null allele, which you might be interested in. You see here we have a catalog number, the RS number for the genetic variation, where 1 letter change is happening. But here the null allele is something different. We don't know why, but some people don't just have a genetic variation that breaks the gene, but they actually miss the whole gene. The whole gene is gone. And that is called a null allele. Allele being 1 copy of a gene. So you can have 2 missing copies of the gene, you can have 1 copy and 1 missing copy, or you can have 2 copies of it. And in this case, this is the optimal genetic result. Do check what your result is. And you see here the effectiveness of phase 2 detoxification is very effective. It might also be very ineffective or somewhere in between. Now, if you're in the effective area, then organic food might still be a good idea. It's not going to be so critical for you. If you're here, I would really make sure that I eat organically. Try to avoid any kind of substances, fertilizers that might contain substances that could harm your body. Now, the same goes for heavy metals. Lead, for example, is a heavy metal that's very unhealthy. Some people get heavy lead detoxification. And the same goes for cadmium and mercury. And these substances, for one thing, accumulate in some certain types of food, like shellfish. Shellfish are filter feeders, they filter water through, and they accumulate high levels of toxic heavy metals. Now, it's not a problem for many people because the genes recognize them and remove the heavy metals. For other people, they can't remove them. They might accumulate in the body and start damaging the person's health. So depending on your results here, we're going to see if shellfish or fish, generally fish grown in fish farms in the sea, are also more polluted with heavy metals. These might be less recommended to you based on your detoxification capacity, while it might be very healthy for other people. So just for fish, we already have 2 things now. So omega-3 content, good or not, and also the content of pollutants that are common in these fish. All right, so do check your results. Ineffective means more organic food, less fish, less shellfish, and here all of this is not so much of a problem. Okay, so that's phase 2 detoxification. Then we have oxidative stress, and you will likely have heard of this before. Oxidative stress is a byproduct of converting energy in our body. When we use oxygen, we need oxygen to convert energy and do something with it, run our body. And the byproducts of this metabolism are free radicals, and they are kind of small toxic molecules that are created, and they then grab onto something and break it. And this grabs onto something else and breaks it, and this grabs onto something else. So it's a sort of chain reaction of damage until an antioxidant, it's a free radical inhibitor or a free radical catcher, you could say, comes along and grabs it and stops this chain reaction. And this this happens throughout our body in many different ways. There are lots of different types of free radicals, and they damage our tissue. And they have something to do with aging of the skin and just getting older. They are one of the main parts that are involved in this. So free radicals, they continuously are produced, and they damage the tissues, and eventually the damage accumulates and the skin begins to sag, and you become more prone to disease. Now, since nature knew that this genetic variation is so dangerous, that these free radicals are so detrimental to health, we have a number of safeguards, and these genes here have these roles. So these genes protect us in different ways from these free radical inhibitors, from these free radicals. All right, so you can read through this. This will explain it in a bit more detail. And now let's look at the scale bars, which is the important thing. So generally, your oxidative stress, how well you are protected from these age-promoting free radicals. Normal means good protection, your genes are working, they're protecting you. Increased means your genes, at least some, if not all of the genes, are disabled through some of the genetic variations, and you don't have the protection that other people would have from these free radicals. Then the recommended dose of antioxidants. I said these free radicals do their damage until an antioxidant, a radical inhibitor, comes along and grabs onto it and neutralizes it. Now, these antioxidants, free radical inhibitors, are vitamin C, vitamin E, vitamin A, alpha-lipoic acid, and some other substances. So many of the typical vitamins that you've heard about, that they're healthy, some of their roles are to neutralize free radicals. So on the one hand, you have genes that might protect you, but they might be broken. And on the other hand, you have these vitamins that can protect you. And if the genes are broken, we're going to need more vitamins to counteract this lacking protection. And that's the basic concept. We test your stress, how good your genes are. If they're good, you need a few vitamins. If they're bad, because they're all broken, you lack this protection. And then we're going to get different types of food that contain a lot of these vitamins, and we're going to recommend them more to you in your nutrition plan, because the containing antioxidants, the vitamins, are very important for you to remain healthy. So again, your genes tell us how important some substances in some foods are for you. All right, the next question, coenzyme Q10 and ubiquinol. This is a very interesting story. If you're into skin creams, you might have realized that some skin creams use coenzyme Q10 as a component, because coenzyme Q10 has the potential to be converted to ubiquinol. So coenzyme Q10 is not active, but ubiquinol, the active form, can neutralize free radicals and slow aging. That's the concept. And that's why it's in skin cream and in all sorts of beauty products. Some people also take it as a nutritional supplement, so a gelatin or a pill, and it's swallowed, it reaches the body, it's converted to ubiquinol and protects you from oxidative stress. However, as I said, you need to convert it, because Q10 by itself is not active. And there is a gene that produces an enzyme, scissors kind of, that recognize Q10, modify it, and then you get ubiquinol. And this ubiquinol is inactive. So Q10 itself is inactive. And you might have guessed it, there is a genetic variation that disables the enzyme. So what happens is I take Q10, it reaches my body, there are no scissors, no enzymes modifying it, there's no action. And I take it every day because I want a lot of protection from oxidative stress, and it's a very expensive supplement as well. And instead of benefiting from it, I lack this function, and it's not active in me. So there are two ways of what you can do in this case. You can either already take the activated form, ubiquinol, or you can counteract it with all of the other antioxidants, vitamin C, E, A, and all of these substances. So if you take more of them, you can partly balance out that you're lacking this function. So here you're going to find out if your body is able to activate coenzyme Q10 to ubiquinol. If it's possible, coenzyme Q10 is going to be active in you, it's going to help you. If it's here, then it's useless. Then some of you will now probably find out that you've taken coenzyme Q10 for years and you cannot process it and it was all for nothing. And here you see the recommended antioxidant substance, coenzyme Q10 or alternative vitamins, depending on where you are. And again, we can take this information, we find out you need more vitamins or not, and then we choose which type of food to recommend to you. And then selenium, that's also a very interesting story. Selenium is a trace element that is contained within food. And there is a gene, the GPX1 gene. Actually, let me scroll up here and show you this gene. The GPX1 gene is this one here. This gene protects you from free radicals as well. And it works like this. The gene has instructions for an enzyme that has a function to float around and grab onto free radicals and neutralize them. However, for this enzyme to work, it needs selenium. Selenium is an integral part of how to build this thing, one of the building blocks. So, if a person is selenium deficient, has too little selenium through poor nutrition, they are going to produce the enzyme, but it's not going to work. And only some of them will work, and the action, the function of this protective enzyme is very low. That is why it's unhealthy to be selenium deficient, one of the reasons. If you then increase the amount of selenium through healthy nutrition or maybe supplements with selenium, you can recover this function, because the new enzymes that are being built correctly, and they can do this function and they protect you from these free radicals. Now, there is a genetic variation that's not uncommon that messed up the building instruction for this enzyme. So it's still building it kind of correctly, but it's slightly modified. So it grabs onto free radicals less efficiently. So even with normal selenium status, this doesn't work very well. So you have a lower protection from free radicals because of this genetic variation. And now the interesting thing is, scientific studies have found out if you increase the amount of selenium to far above normal levels, you can rescue the function of many of these, and then you can increase the protection again. So, and this is a very interesting point. Some people say, why do you do a genetic test to find out how much selenium a person needs? Why not do a blood test? Check out if they are in a healthy range. If yes, fine. If not, give them more selenium. But that's exactly the point. If the gene works normally, which you can only test through genetics, the normal range is okay. But if the gene has the genetic variation, you need much more, so much higher than the normal range, to achieve the same result. So through genetics, we know you should be in the high range and you should be in the low range, while a blood test would say this is the healthy range, which we try to put everyone into, and we try to adjust everyone to be in the healthy range. So really there are some things which blood tests can do, which genetics can't, like see if there's a deficiency. Genetics has no chance of doing this, but genetics has the option of finding out how much you should really have, because not everybody's requirement is the same as we see in this gene. So by looking at this gene, we know your requirement of selenium. If it's increased, like in this example, it means your genes are modified. It's less effective, and you can rescue some of the function with more selenium. And if you're here in the normal range, the normal amount of selenium is completely sufficient for you. So again, what we do is we look at this, we find out how high your requirement of selenium is, and then we evaluate every one of the 1,000 different types of food, and we can find out this has a lot of selenium, you need a lot of selenium, so we're going to recommend this type of food more. Alright, so by testing more than 50 genes, we now know the different tendencies that you have, different metabolic problems that might occur from these genetic variations, and we know what sort of substances in food might be beneficial for your health, which ones might be detrimental to your health, and we can tell this is good or this is bad for you. And here is a summary. So again, do read through this. It just explains about food ingredients. Now there are a number of good and bad substances in food that we're evaluating here. So if you check this page here, total fat. A lot of fat is generally bad for people. But for some people it's moderately bad, and for some it's extremely bad because of genetic variations. They just respond to it more, and they have more negative health effects from it. So do check where your arrow is. In this case it's very unfavorable. Saturated fatty acids, that's the unhealthy type of fat, so unfavorable. Cholesterol, also unfavorable in this case. Total sugar, so lots of sugar and high calories from sugars is also bad for this person. Glycemic index is not so bad. Glycemic index is how fast the sugar goes into your bloodstream, and it might increase it a lot or a lot and very quickly, so it spikes, which is bad for some metabolic problems, and should be avoided for some genetic types, and it's not so much of a problem for some other genetic types. So having a high glycemic index is not so much of a problem here. It might be much worse for you. Sodium, that's table salt. For some people it's normal, for others it's very unhealthy. The amino acids cysteine and methionine, in this case, are very unfavorable, might be different again in your case. Then phosphorus, which is in chocolate and in meat products, sausages and so on, is moderately unfavorable. Arachidonic acid, this is something in animal products. It increases the inflammation response of the body, is moderately bad. It might be very bad for you or normal. Alpha-linoleic acid and EPA, they are omega-3 fatty acids. They are for some people favorable, for some medium, and for some unfavorable. So it's unfavorable in this case. And alcohol is very unfavorable. Coffee, favorable in this case. It can have a protective effect as well. It has a lot of antioxidants, so for some people it's good. And purines again is moderately unfavorable. Now this is just some background information. These are the typical substances in food that are bad for you. Very bad for some, moderately bad for others, and some of them are good for you. And then there are also the micronutrients, the vitamins, the minerals and so on. And through your genetics we can find out how your body responds to many of these vitamins and minerals, and what dosage we would recommend based on your genetics in order to ensure that everything is working all right. You remember the GPX1 gene, it needs more selenium, so we would recommend more selenium in your diet if you have the genetic variation, and normal amounts if you don't. So here again is information about micronutrients, and here you see some scales, and you see your requirement of vitamin A. So it's actually quite high in this case. Vitamin B6 is moderate, vitamin C is a little higher, vitamin E is same, calcium is lower, iron is quite low, and so on. So all of these vitamins and minerals that are contained within food and different food types are evaluated here. And we can tell you which amount we would recommend based on your genetics. Also coenzyme Q10, which we've talked about, it works in this case, that's why some of it is recommended, and omega-3 fatty acids in this case would not be recommended, but phytosterols, which is an alternative, is recommended. So this table shows you the recommended daily allowance. Now there are some agencies that try to make recommendations that are applicable to everyone, men and women, children, babies, and they said a person should eat 200 micrograms of folic acid, applicable to everybody, and calcium 800 milligrams, and so on. So they did their best to try to find out what is the general healthy nutrition, and they did a good job in this respect. But only through looking at genetics we can see individual differences, and that is why your actual requirement, based on our recommendation, based on your genetics, is deviating from the normal amount. So here you see omega-3 fatty acids, we would actually in this case not recommend them because they have a negative effect in some respects, and we would recommend phytosterols instead, and so on. So you will find your requirement actually will differ from the actual requirement. And the best effect, the best way to cover your requirement is to optimize your nutrition. So getting micronutrients from nutrition is always the best approach. So this is what the program is supposed to do. It is trying to find out how much you need, which type of foods should you eat to cover these requirements, and then you should follow the list and eat the stuff that is recommended and avoid the ones that we don't recommend, and that will then help you to get the right nutrition. And here you see some scientific references that this is built on. Everything is very strongly scientifically based because we're a medical laboratory. We do work with medical genetic standards, so every claim that we make must have a number of scientific studies supporting the same thing. So here you see the scientific studies. In case you're interested, it's heavy reading. You might need a degree in genetics or medicine to understand some of it, but in case you're interested, you can look them up on the internet and find those publications. Now, the best way to cover your micronutrient and mineral needs is, of course, a healthy nutrition. And this is what this program is meant to help you with, to make sure you eat the right food and cover the right nutrient amounts. So you're in the best way of using this program to make sure you get the right nutrients. However, if you think that you're not following the program enough, or that you maybe could do more to make sure that you get the right nutrients, there is the option of a personalized supplement. And this looks like this. This is one of these bottles, and it's called NutriMe Nutrition. And the concept works like this. If I open it, it's a bit difficult to show on camera, but it consists of a lot of different small pellets, small vesicles. And we have around 20 different of these pellets, and each one of them contains a certain vitamin. So there's one for vitamin C, one for vitamin E, one for vitamin A, and so on. And what we do is we do know your requirement for the different vitamins, and we take this information and then we mix the different pellets at different amounts, in different concentrations. And then all you do is every morning you take a spoon. For me, as I said, I have a high risk of Alzheimer's disease. I need a lot of antioxidants. So I need 8 milliliters, which is exactly this amount. I do this in the mornings. I take them, I put them in my mouth, drink a glass of water, and they're gone. And they have a number of advantages as compared to gelatin capsules, for example. For example, calcium and zinc. These two substances, they use the same process of how to be absorbed. So they're kind of channels, you could say little doors from the intestine into the bloodstream. And if you mix calcium and zinc as powders, one of them is going to go through and be absorbed and block the doors, and the other one is not going to be absorbed. That's a general problem. So do look out if ever you see a multimineral substance which has both in it, because bioavailability is very bad in this case. So the advantage here is that these pellets, these small vesicles, contain one substance only. So in one position of the intestine, you're going to release calcium, and in another position, there's going to be a different pellet, you're going to release zinc. So both are absorbed. Then these are slow release. It means over the course of 8 hours, you're going to gradually absorb the vitamins. And this is also very important because vitamin C, for example, has a half-life of half an hour, of 30 minutes, which means if I take 100 milligrams of vitamin C and it reaches my bloodstream, 30 minutes later, half of it is already gone. Another 30 minutes later, half of what remained is gone, so I have a quarter. So especially in the case of vitamin C and antioxidants that our body should have at all times, so that whenever a free radical is created, that we immediately neutralize it. All of these are better in a slow release concept. So this is slow release. It gives your body energy the whole throughout the day, not energy, the nutrients. And I personally would also recommend not to take it at night because it contains vitamin C, and for some people, me especially, vitamin C has a invigorating effect, so it wakes you up. and you might have problems sleeping. So do take it in the mornings or at lunchtime, and I wouldn't take it too late at night before going to sleep. But then again, you can try it and decide yourself. And this is here on the bottle you will have your name. This is personally produced for you, and here you will see lots of little scale bars to see how much of each substance is in there. And just to give you an idea, we're testing more than 50 genes. There are more than 700 trillion different result possibilities. So this is as unique and personalized as it gets. 700 trillion different mixtures. It's not that we have 3 different ones and you ship the best match, but everyone is produced specifically for you. And the best thing is, since this is really the nutrients your body requires to keep running, to keep staying healthy, it is recommended to take once per day, preferably for the rest of your life. We do take into account different seasons, because in winter you do need a little more vitamin D because your body doesn't produce as much through sunlight. Also in different countries it's a different question. We do take into account increasing age, so whenever you order it, it's re-evaluated. We also take into account new science when we find out, oh, it might be better with this genetic variation to actually increase this a bit more. It flows into it. So every time you reorder, we re-evaluate it and you get the newest stage of science, and it ensures that you get the right nutrients. And in order to order this, we have a website. That's the DNAnutriControl.com website, and there you need to enter a recipe code, because as you remember, this is unique based on your genes. So in the report you're going to find this recipe code. This is how it looks, and you're going to, it's unfortunately quite a long code, but there's a lot of information. You're going to have to integrate this information, enter this information into the form, and this contains encoded the information that we need to create this mix for you. So you order it, then you enter the recipe code, we create it, and then we ship it to you. And you can just try it for 3 months, or you can go for 12 months, and so on. So this is the option of how to order this as an additional supplement in case you want to make sure that you get the right nutrients in addition to the right nutrition. Okay, now let's talk about the food table, which is probably the most important or most interesting part of your genetic test. This genetic test is modular, so you have the chance to say, I just want to lose weight, or I just want to know what is healthy for me, or both of it together. So depending on which genetic test that you've ordered, you might see a slightly different type of food table here. In this example, both of the things were ordered, so I can explain all of the aspects of the table. So don't worry if you sometimes see a question mark instead of a result here. That's just because this part was not ordered and has not been genetically tested. All right, so now let's look at the food table. I'm going to jump over this. You can read up on it in case you're interested. I'm going to explain it on the live table. So let me just find a good page. Let's go for this one and zoom in. So first of all, here you have different categories: baked goods, cakes, and confectionery. So here are the different types of food that all belong in this category. And for one thing, what is important for the weight management aspect, in case you have ordered this, you will see these bars here. And these bars and these numbers will likely be different for you because it's based on your genes. They're all personalized. So what we find here is that apple strudel is as I've explained, something that has less weight gaining potential than waffles would do. So what the person can eat 60 grams of apple strudel to have the same weight gain effect as 15 grams of waffles. So what does this tell you? It tells you eat more apple strudel and less waffles if you have the choice. Both taste maybe the same to you, then you can choose the ones that are better for your genes. Some people say, looking at these gram numbers is too complicated. They just say, I only eat things in the green area and I avoid the ones in red. Or they might say red only on Sundays, otherwise just green food. There's a very easy way to adapt your nutrition. It has the benefit of teaching you what type of food is good for you and you like, and which ones you should avoid. So this is for the weight management aspect. So go for more of the green stuff and less of the red stuff. Also for the weight management stuff, when you look through your table, you will have found something that looks like this. Any amount, no item. This means that the calories contained within this food are so insignificant, so small, that it doesn't really matter how much you eat of it. This means in case you're ever hungry and you don't have any more food to eat because you've used up all of your items, then you can just look out for these and eat as much as you want. So for different categories, in some cases you're going to see this quite a lot. So here, for example, all different types of salad and so on. So any amount, no item is a good intermediate snack in case you don't want to gain weight. Now this here shows you the main calorie containing substances. So for example, going for spinach. Spinach, generally a general portion of spinach is 150 grams. And 150 grams of spinach contain 29 kilocalories. A very, very low amount. That's why it's also a no item. Any amount, you can eat that whenever in between. So 29 kilocalories, 4 grams of protein, 1 gram of carbohydrates, and 0 grams of fat. So these are the important calorie containing substances. So just in case you're interested. And if you're not, as long as you just look at these bars, that's sufficient for your weight loss program. Okay, in case you have an allergy and you gave us this information at the time of ordering the report, things like nut allergy, you would see a warning in this area here. So it says allergy and it might show a warning sign. This just means this type of food might contain or is likely to contain the substance that you have told us you are allergic to. We don't find out any allergies from genetics. The genetics of allergy is just not understood enough, and we don't know how to determine if you are going to be allergic to something based on a genetic test. So we're limited with the possibilities here. But if you knew that you're not allergic, then we could enter this information and it will give you a warning. It does not mean this is a foolproof list. It just means it's supposed to help you decide and warn you, be careful, it might be that there is something that you're allergic to. It's ultimately your responsibility to check every type of food if they contain if it contains the allergens that you should avoid. So it's just a help, but don't depend on it too much. Then that's the weight management aspect. Now for the healthy food aspect, this part here is more important. So in the first aspect we look at how much fat, carbohydrates does this contain and what is the weight gain potential for you. And here we look at from all of the ingredients that the food has. Some of them might be good for you based on your genes, some of them might be bad for you based on your genes, and if there's more good stuff in it, it's going to be more recommended. If it's got more bad stuff in it, it's going to be less recommended to you. And the mode of recommendation is with smiley faces, so it's very easy to understand. 6 happy smiley faces is the best you can have. It just means that vegetable mix in general is very healthy for you. It contains a lot of vitamins, minerals that you require in a higher amount based on your genetics, and it contains very few problems, very few substances that are a problem for your health. 1 smiley face is less healthy than 6 smiley faces. Then there are neutral faces, these black ones, iceberg lettuce for example. It means it contains some negative stuff, but also some good stuff, and they kind of balance each other out, so it's neither good nor bad for you to eat this. And then there is one red smiley face. That means more bad stuff in it than good things, and it goes up to 7 unhappy faces. So, for example, some beans might be very healthy, but chickpeas are very unhealthy due to some substances that they contain more. Soybeans are not so good, green peas are better. So there are really big differences from the same category of food based on more than 40 different ingredients or components that this food is made of. And over here, you can see the components. So this is just the most important ones, but things like glycemic index, how much lactose is included, how much calcium, how much iron, how much zinc, and so on. So different vitamins and so on. And we look at all of these aspects. We look at your genes. We say you have a high risk of a certain metabolic problem. To counteract this, you need a lot of folic acid. How much folic acid is in this type of food? Is there anything else that might be bad? And this way we evaluate every one of these types of food independently by looking at all of it together. It's not just saying fruit is healthy, so eat fruit. It's just too simple. All right, and if we look at this table in a bit more detail, you see that some numbers are green, some are black, and some are red. Now, these numbers are the same for everyone, so they are not personalized to your genes. It just means that red means it's a bad substance, so sodium, for example. So this type of food contains a lot of sodium, more than others, that's why it's red. So the ones that contain most are red, if it's bad, and the ones that contain most of something good are green. So any green number means this is particularly rich in folic acid, and this is particularly rich in sodium. It might help you to get a little insight into why something might be less healthy or more healthy for you. However, as I said, it's a very complicated thing. Every one of these types of food has at least 500 different calculations being done and different factors being considered, and overall if it's beneficial or bad for you is considered in this. So this is for people that are really interested in how much of each of these substances is contained within, but you don't need to know the deeper workings of how it works. For you to use it, really just eat more of the green smileys, eat less of the red smileys, and the unhappy faces. And sometimes you might even see in meat, all of it is bad, but some of it has six red smileys, unhappy faces, and some of it has 2. So you should just prefer the ones with less unhappy faces. And you should generally eat less of the stuff that is red and more of the stuff that is green. Doesn't mean you can never eat anything with red, but make it an exception rather than the rule. And for weight management, as I said, just look at the bars, maybe use the grams per item. It might be ounces per item depending on where you're located. And here is one more aspect. You see lactose and gluten as well as caution. And this means if, for example, you are genetically predisposed to be lactose intolerant, then it doesn't mean you are lactose intolerant, it just means you are likely to develop lactose intolerant symptoms at some point in your life. It also does not mean you should stop eating lactose containing milk products unless you have symptoms. So there's no need to stop eating them. It just means you might have a warning sign here sometimes. You can eat this type of food, but if you ever get a bad reaction, remember, check out if you have a warning here. If yes, then it's likely that you have developed a food intolerance that you had a genetic predisposition to. The same goes for gluten. So you can continue eating it if there's a warning sign, but if you realize you have a bad reaction, then avoid everything with the warning. It's as simple as that. This will help you deal with lactose intolerance and gluten intolerance in a very simple way. It's similar with the caution. So if you have a caution sign in here, it just means you can eat this type of food, but it might at some point cause problems. So just look out for it and if you ever get a bad reaction, avoid everything that has a caution sign. It's as simple as that. So it really helps you avoid any type of food that is bad for you or that might cause digestive problems. All right, and this here at the end is quite technical. In case you're interested, otherwise you can skip this last part. This is just some information about our certifications. Now, what sets us apart from many other suppliers of genetic testing is that we have our own in-house laboratory. So we run our own laboratory, our own processes, and we put a very high focus on high quality documentation, high certifications. So we have lots of external bodies coming in and auditing us, auditing our data protection system, auditing our quality management system and so on. And we also want to have control over the turnaround times as well as a very high level of automation. If you're interested, there are videos on the internet showing the level of automation, that all of our processes are done by robots and machines to avoid human errors and improve throughput. But here I'm just quickly going to walk you through the certifications that we have in our laboratory. So for one thing, this here is from the Austrian state. And many countries have genetic testing laws, which are meant to protect consumers from discrimination against genetics and so on. And they are in a different form in different countries. And as far as I'm aware, Austria in Europe has the most strict genetic testing laws that I'm aware of. So we have the license to perform medical genetic testing issued by the Austrian government. So they came, they audited the laboratory, they do this in regular cases, and it's a very, very strict process of obtaining this license to perform medical genetic tests. So this is the first certification that we have. Then in addition, this was compulsory to have a laboratory in Austria. It's also a quality sign compared to other countries where you could do it without any kind of certification. So this is one of the steps. Then the optional certification, the ISO 15189 certification, is the highest level of quality certification you can have for a medical laboratory. So it looks at quality control, checking for errors, validation of all processes and so on. And this certification applies to lifestyle analyses for weight management and healthy nutrition, as well as for medical interpretation and genetic analysis. And the company and office is ISO 9001 certified. This is all about document control, continual improvement and so on. Then some of the medical genetic analyses are covered not by 15189 but by ISO 17025. It's similar to the ISO 15189 but yet again slightly different. So all processes are highly certified, audited not only by us, by our own quality management team, but also by some of the companies we supply, as well as government bodies and official certification institutions. And this here just shows the technical details. So your order number, date of birth, the analyzing laboratory address. It shows my signature again for releasing your genetic results, because every genetic result needs to be looked at by 3 people, 2 different scientists that analyze the results, and then we compare if they both had the same conclusion. If yes, we can go ahead, and then my signature as laboratory head to release the results for shipping. And then some other information of when the analysis times have been performed. All right, and this is the end of this counseling session. I hope you found it interesting, and I hope I cleared up any misunderstandings that you might have had. I did my best to explain everything. Do read through the booklet again. It will repeat a lot of the things that I've said, and I think it will make some things more clear. The ones that are scientifically very interested will find enough basis for research into the science behind the whole program. And I hope we made it very transparent on what scientific studies everything is based on, and that I've convinced you of the scientific basis of this program. I hope I have also given you a number of different options of how to use this program to your liking. Some people want to do it online, some people want to do it on paper, some people want to do it easy, others want the flexibility. So I think you've seen that you have lots of different options of how to use this program. And I think there's not much left to say. In case you do have questions, do contact us. We'll do our best to answer those questions and also try to improve the text in the reports to make sure that future customers do understand it correctly. So please do get back to us. We like positive as well as negative feedback to improve our